Welcome to the News and Views podcast by the Fintech Times. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centered around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report on the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world. Follow the conversation using hashtag TFC News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.
Hi, I'm Polly Jean Harrison, features editor at the Fintech Times.
Hi, I'm Tyler Smith, and I'm a journalist at the Fintech Times.
Hello, and welcome back once again to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. It is a brand new day, and Tyler, it's just me and you, right? Francis has gone off and decided to have the day off. How dare he?
How dare the audacity? The audacity.
It's, Fintech Times for life, right? That's it. You don't get fun anymore.
You don't get days
after
off.
that, but
I didn't realise we could take days off. I haven't stopped working in
No.
2 years.
We're kidding, of course. We hope Francis is having a wonderful time. But Tyler, how are you anyway? How are you feeling?
I'm doing really well, Polly. Yeah. It's been a very busy week. Very busy week, of course. We have published some really good articles this week. We've been continuing our theme of innovative technologies this week, which has been really fascinating, and we'll be delving a little bit into elements of that in our conversation today. So, yeah, it's been a 10 out of 10 week. What about you, Polly?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same. It's been really a really great week. I'm loving the innovative technologies theme that we're doing this month. It's really awesome. And then, of course, we're both going to Pay 360 next week as well, which is exciting. So we're sort of doing a lot of prep for that too. So no, it's a very exciting time at the moment. But what are you going to be talking about this week? What's your article?
Yeah, thanks, Polly. Well, as I mentioned, I'm going to be sort of following along from this innovative technologies theme, and we're actually going to be looking at a new solution brought forward by Wert for NFTs and Web3. So that should be really cool. What about you? What have you got in store for us today?
Amazing stuff. And yeah, I'm going to be looking at a new buy now, pay later solution for B2B e-commerce from Hokodo and BNP Paribas. So that a bit different to what you're talking about, but a nice little mix of pieces today. Tyler, do you want to go first or shall I go first? I feel like I always pick, but I'll let you decide who goes first this week.
You know what? I think I'm ready to go first.
Yeah, let's do it. You go for it.
Let's do it. Let's go. Well, yeah, so the article I'm bringing to the table today, as I mentioned, is about this payment solutions provider called Wert. And essentially, like what it is it's got like a checkout tool that you can use to buy NFTs to their platform. Now, this sounds sort of like quite mundane, but actually it's providing a solution to a really big problem, especially within fiat to crypto transactions. According to the findings of Cointelegraph, 50% of transactions when you try to buy from like fiat to cryptocurrency, 50% of them are declined. And this is usually down to a lot of factors, namely in the Cointelegraph research, they talked about user location and how that was sort of preventing transactions from going through. But what Wert have done, they've worked with FIS, of course, to develop a solution that will see 95% of transactions go through for NFTs on its platform. It's really sort of like tapping into this need for better payment processing, not just in NFTs and not just in Web3. I mean, we've seen a lot in the past about things to do with like checkout experiences, right? And like, if the checkout experience isn't good or if you get declined, it will make you, shy away from the service. And I've actually had some of this myself. As an example, I was this is a bit of a rogue example, I should say, but I was actually topping up my gas. I have like, when you top up and like you top up online. So I did it and it was a £50. I put £50 on the gas meter and it took the money. And then it was like, oh, by the way, your the payment has faulted. It wasn't my card. Obviously I'm a billionaire, so money's not an issue. But it was actually like the payment processing system that had faltered basically, and it took my money. And I was like, oh god, this isn't good. If this happens to you, you might as well consider your life over, because trying to get British Gas to give you money back is is like trying to find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's almost impossible. But back to Wert. Wert have basically developed a solution that will ensure that when you purchase NFTs on their platform, this solution just makes that sort of process a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more reliable above anything else. So I thought that was really, really cool, and it's sort of like bracing for what it expects to be the mass adoption of NFTs. This was an article actually we looked at this week in our Innovative Technologies series about sort of Web3 adoption and where we're at it, and how quickly we can expect this to come into fruition. So that's sort of the story. My problem with this, first of all, I think it's a great solution. I think payment innovation is great. I think people who want to buy NFTs and have sort of a good payment solution to back that process up, great. I love that. But to be honest, I'm just like Web3. Yeah, I can see like adoption in that area for sure, and that's actually something we spoke about last week on the podcast. We spoke about metaverse and that sort of level of adoption and where that was going, and it looked promising. But in terms of NFTs, personally, I'm not too convinced that the failure of payment processes is the reason people aren't adopting NFTs, right? The hot topic, hot opinion, controversial. I know we love to be controversial on this podcast, Polly. But yeah, I was just like, I'm not sure if this is going to trigger sort of the response to the market that Wert is sort of hoping for. Obviously, they've got a new product. They're hoping for the best. They really want to drive adoption, sure. But is it more the functionality and purpose of NFTs that is holding them back? I personally believe so. We saw a lot of instances, especially in like the music industry or the sports industry, especially in America, where they're sort of like triggering fan engagement through like NFTs and these sorts of technologies. But I think NFTs have sort of peaked. Is that a controversial thing to say? Have they peaked? I mean, Bitcoin, I get, right? Bitcoin, that's here to stay. Everybody loves Bitcoin, up and down, that's part of the thrill. But you see it just to like sort of bring in other coins. You see like when people join other coins and then they sort of go up and down and they sort of fall out the market, right? I really believe that's what's happened with NFTs. I think it was very novel and people were like, oh, this is cool. But like, I don't know, is it really gonna sustain itself, that sort of like format? I don't know. So, Polly, I'm sorry, I just had like 8 minutes of verbal diarrhea, but I'd really love to see what your take on this is. I mean, do you think I'm, barking up the wrong tree? Are NFTs here to stay? Are you an NFT? Are we all NFTs? What's your take on this? What's your take on What's New Solution?
See, Tyler, I really don't think that was all that much of a controversial opinion, to be honest with you, because I completely agree with you in that I don't necessarily think NFTs are, still wholly relevant. To be honest with you, I don't think they were super relevant even when they were relevant. You know what I mean? Like when they were
Yeah.
super popular a summer or two ago, and it seemed like all we were talking about is NFTs. Even then, I was like, are these actually popular? Or is it just like a few people talking about them and like on Twitter, everyone's talking about them? But I think I agree with you in that I don't think changing the payment processing system is going to make much difference. I think it's going to help for sure, and it's great to have this solution out there. And I think if there's anything that's going to help mass adoption of NFTs, having simpler ways to pay will definitely help. And I know the credit card acceptance rates for crypto transactions has always been sort of historically quite low, probably because they're, I suppose, quite risky. If you think, you're using credit to buy crypto, that's a whole host of risky transactions that banks probably don't want to be a part of. But no, I just completely agree with you. NFTs had their moment, and I really don't see how they're going to continue to have that moment, even though with solutions such as this one are making it easier to purchase them. I know if Francis were here, he would talk about how NFTs have evolved and they're more than just sort of a funky picture, and it's it's a key to a community, because I know he likes to tell that story about that guy he interviewed. I can't remember his name, but I know if Francis was here, he'd speak about that. And I think that's also a fair opinion as well. For me, I really don't see how NFTs can kind of claw back in to whatever popularity they might have had, or even, gain more popularity. I'm all for new solutions, and I'm all for making things easier. So hopefully for the people that are interested in purchasing NFTs, this solution will really help that. And just in general, the growth of the industry itself. But will we see like a mass adoption? I don't know. Just because people can buy with Apple Pay now, I don't think that necessarily means everyone's going to go out and buy an NFT.
That's true. You're absolutely on the money there. I think the ceiling was always quite clear with NFTs, and I think in terms of their relevancy in the art world, of course, groundbreaking. I thought, digital art, this is really cool, this is really new. I fully agree with that. And especially when they're in their sort of use cases in sort of wider art instances of, like, as I spoke about, the sports teams and stuff like that. Sure, fine. But I for me, the ceiling was always there. It just didn't have the elements together in the way that something like Bitcoin or contactless, as a wider example, had to support that sort of mass level of relevancy. Really, I think their relevancy was just too stringent. And to be honest, I think if I were Wert, I think, first of all, well done on the solution. Great. I know it's not easy to build these payment solutions. I think it would be better, or maybe their next step should be looking at ways to integrate fiat payments into wider other elements of the Web3 ecosystem, like the metaverse, for example. But then again, as we spoke about last week, the metaverse has its own problems. And I think, I think payment processes like these are a welcome step forward, but I think there's a lot more that needs to come into play before these things go into mainstream.
Yeah, and I think solutions such as this one are quite helpful, across the industry, right? Like right now, obviously, we're talking specifically about NFTs, but there's no reason why a solution similar, or this solution, could be sort of transferred into other sectors of the fintech world, right? So it's always great to get new technology. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't see it. I really don't see it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I hope we haven't been too overly critical of Word or NFTs, but I think I think we really are tapping into something here. But anyway, I think let's move on. Should we move on to your article? Are you ready for
Yeah,
that?
let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So this is actually not too dissimilar to what we've just talked about. We're talking about payments, so it's kind of on the right level. But basically, FinTech Hokodo, I think that's how you say it, has launched a new B2B buy now pay later solution in collaboration with the international banking group BNP Paribas. Again, I'm hoping that's how you say that. Now I'm not second guessing myself. Um, but the solution aims to enable large multinational corporates to provide payment alternatives to their business customers. So, following the significant rise of B2B digital sales, it has emerged that B2B sellers are in need of a more streamlined order to cash experience. And there's a lot of desire for, prompt on time payments without worries concerning credit cards or like fraud risk, things like that. And these businesses also want to offer buyers a frictionless purchasing experience and journey alongside advantageous credit terms. So this is kind of where this new buy now pay later B2B solution comes in, as it offers a fully digital experience with easy integration into existing checkout systems via an API. It also provides instant buyer approval through a real-time credit decision process and wide acceptance rate. And so this, I think, the solution in general, I thought was really interesting, both on a couple of different fronts. Obviously, we were just talking about new payment processes and how that's great. And I think especially when we think about like B2B e-commerce, historically, that kind of sector has been very critically underserved in finance in general. So this new solution could prove to be really popular, as it comes at a crucial time for what is quite an underserved area of the B2B commerce sector. And however, this was also really interesting to me due to the fact that we're talking about buy now, pay later here. And obviously, again, kind of like how we were saying with NFTs, buy now, pay later really had its time in the spotlight a year or two ago, and it was such a huge trend both in payments, in fintech, but like in the consumer world as well. I know sometimes when we talk about trends, we are very much thinking about people within the fintech industry, but buy now, pay later was very much a huge consumer trend as well, and we saw a lot of interest in buy now, pay later products and services from everyone, and we're still seeing that interest now. But I think now that sort of the hubbub about it has died down a little bit. At least that's what I've experienced. I feel like the hype, maybe for want of a better word, or the fuss, whatever you want to call it, the everything around buy now pay later has died down a little bit, and now it's just kind of a thing. It's just there. It's just a payment process that you can use. Obviously, we're still getting like new innovations with it all the time, and I believe there's still people looking into it in terms of regulation and things like that. But just generally speaking, buy now pay later has very much just become normal. Which is great for buy now pay later, because I think it's just cemented itself into people's everyday lives. So to see buy now pay later come in at an almost entirely different angle to what most people will be familiar with it by, so looking at B2B and e-commerce, I think that's quite significant personally. And I think this solution and applying buy now pay later to things outside of the consumer finance where it did so well is really interesting to me. And I just think it's kind of an example of buy now pay later kind of getting to the next level, maybe, if that might be a bit of a dramatic phrase, but I think just it's branching out and it's looking at other ways to be relevant, and I kind of think that's really cool. So I mean, Tyler, what do you think about this? I know back in the day we talked about buy now pay later a lot on the podcast, but with the lens of looking at it you know a year-ish on, 6 months, however long it's been since we last spoke about it. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, this was definitely a really, really interesting article for you to bring to the table. This is actually quite relevant in my mind as well, just because well, not literally, but very, very recently, I've just done a panel discussion at Money Live in London with big banks, the Santander, NatWest, Nationwide, Volante Technologies were on the panel as well, and we talked about buy now pay later and sort of like the evolution of it. I think the consensus across the board was that buy now pay later is definitely here to stay. That's obviously something that you touched upon in your commentary. I think the when you said like the hype has sort of like died down, I think when we were talking about NFTs and the hype dying down in that, I think it's died down in a very different way I think buy now pay later has died down in a very different way to NFT technology, in the fact that, as you said, it has become mainstream. It's almost become like expected, really, when you go to an online checkout, at least. And we've seen a lot of solutions branching into sort of like in-store instances as well, which is really, really exciting. This business to business offering, I think, is really, really cool. I think financing and flexible financing, always a bonus, always a plus in my eyes. We did see sort of buy now pay later raising a lot of concerns and a lot of eyebrows in the consumer financing space, namely because it was impacting credit scores, people's levels of debt, for example. So that was sort of one aspect of it, but in this sort of business to business aspect, I think a lot of those risks won't translate into the same sort of arenas as consumer finance. I think that in terms of the business to business transactions, of course, this is something that will come as a welcome option for businesses, especially when you look at things like their access to capital. We've seen a lot of things trying to get around access to capital. I was writing the behind the idea feature that we published this week, which was with Supply at Me was the company, and they had a solution that could turn like physical inventory into capital, which I thought was really, really good. And in terms of sort of the business dilemmas that you see in today's market, this access to capital and access to funds is really a key area that I think has fallen into the focus of innovators in the industry. So for a solution like this to be like, you know what, this is flexible payments, this is a way for you to get what you need. In a way, I do think though that the element of like paying back and making sure that you can pay back and that you take out loans that you can afford is really important in terms of a business standpoint. Obviously, business transactions are a lot bigger than the typical consumer purchase in a way. So yeah, I think this is good. I think it will do a lot to help businesses for sure, for sure. And I think it's just sort of another stepping stone in the evolution of buy now pay later, which is always really exciting. So what an article to bring to the table, Polly. I really like this one.
Oh, thank you, Tyler. But no, I completely agree with everything you just said, and I love that you mentioned about sort of access to finance and capital and things like that, because I think that's absolutely true, and that's one of the ways that buy now pay later really does shine from both the consumer standpoint and now from a B2B standpoint as well. It's all about having that access to financial services that you maybe wouldn't have before, and obviously everything comes with a pinch of salt, and you've obviously got to use it correctly. But I do think it's going to be a game changer for certain businesses. And if it's available to small businesses, especially,
Yeah.
I think it'll be a really exciting thing. But anyway, I think, that brings us to the end of our discussion this week. Just the two of us today, just the two articles. But if you were interested in anything that you've heard us discuss today, head on over to the Fintech Times website, where you can find more news and insights all about fintech, as well as the articles that we spoke about today. But Tyler, why don't we just really quickly do what I learned this week? So each week we like to discuss the little things that we've learned over the week. Being the Fintech Times editorial team, we get so much new information crossing our desks all the time. So we thought it'd be fun to share that with our listeners. So Tyler, what did you learn this week?
Well, I'm very happy to confirm that Apple Pay has actually gone live in Mexico, which is really, really exciting. It's gone live because of a partnership between Paymentology and this Mexico City headquartered fintech called Fondadora. And basically, they've partnered together to bring Apple Pay to Mexico. And this is really actually timely because Mexico in 2018 introduced something called the Fintech Law, which was like trying to promote payments and secure payments and digital payments and the digital economy, all that. So yes, Apple Pay is now live in Mexico. So if you go to Mexico, you can use Apple Pay if you're one of their consumers. What did you learn this week, Polly?
See, that's really interesting. Before I go on mine, I just want to quickly say, in my head, Apple Pay is just everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's always really interesting to me that it's not. The fact that you can't use Apple Pay in certain places is wild to me, because
Yeah.
it just seems so ingrained into everywhere I've been, which goes to show I need to travel more maybe. But anyway, so what I learned this week is that Alba has obtained its UK banking license from both the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulation Authority. So this license sees Alba become Scotland's first fully operational digital-first SME-focused bank. And I thought that was very exciting. It's always great to hear new banking licenses being approved, since they are so difficult to get and take a lot of hard work. So it'd be great to see what Alma comes up with over the next months, years, etc. But anyway, Tyler, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We don't need Francis. I don't think you should ever come back,
It's been a roller coaster today, hasn't it?
I hope he listens to this and hears us talking about him.
Oh, he will be our first listener. I have no doubt.
You better have be. If he's not, that would be really bad, wouldn't it? But anyway, thank you so much, Tyler. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. And I hope you have a fun time. And I'll see you next week. I'll see you at Pay 360.
Oh gosh, yes, we'll be at Pay 360 next week, won't we? Tuesday and Wednesday, isn't it? So yeah, very, very, very exciting.
Fantastic. Well, catch you on the next one.
Catch you in the next one, guys.
Thanks for listening to the News and Views podcast by the Fintech Times. Don't miss next week's episode and continue the conversations using hashtag TFT News and Views, and follow us at the Fintech Times.